Can I turn to Lord Anderson now?
Well, thank you. Good morning, Lord Chancellor. Thank you for coming to see us. I'd like to ask you about the European Convention of Human Rights.
All right, buckle up, because this one's a heavyweight showdown in the House of Lords. Lord Anderson kicks things off with a pointed question about the European Convention on Human Rights, the ECHR, testing the Lord Chancellor on where the government really stands. Is this about reform, respect, or a quiet reshaping of human rights in Britain? Stay with me, because what unfolds here isn't just polite parliamentary chat. It's a tug of war between tradition, international law, and the politics of migration. And trust me, the tension is about to ignite.
And I declare an interest as a barrister acting both for governments and against them, including in Strasbourg. You spoke at the Council of Europe in June about reform of the ECHR, and you said that reform must be a shared political endeavour amongst us as member states. What are the specific aspects of the Convention or the Convention system that require reform, and what do you want those reforms to achieve in practice?
Well, thank you very much, Lord Anderson. My speech in Strasbourg followed an intervention, as some of you will know, by 9 other member state signatories to the convention, and it was clear going into what was then also my first address to the Council of Europe and my first meeting with the European Court of Human Rights. There was a real appetite for a discussion, particularly from our Danish and our Italian colleagues. There is clearly some concern across the Council of Europe and different types of member states about how the Convention is working, particularly in relation to the challenges of mass migration. You will have seen much of the commentary over recent days on that front as well. And I wanted to make clear that it's a position of our government that you can be big supporters of the Convention, absolutely stand behind the independence of the European Court of Human Rights, and then also have a sensible conversation about whether an instrument that was written 75 years ago can still fit the needs of the modern era. So on one level, it was to signal that this government takes a very positive approach to the Convention and to the European Court, that we're not here to start attacking that court, very much stand behind the principle of the independence of the judiciary in the international sphere as well, but that we are very keen to be able to shape any conversation on reform that's happening, unlike other potential attempts by previous administrations to talk about reform with colleagues in Europe. This isn't something that is just being led by us, the Brits. Other nations are very much welcoming this debate, and the discussions since I made my speech have been positive. There is a desire to see where the conversation takes us. So there isn't yet, I guess, a confirmed view either between the 9 signatories between themselves about exactly what it is they want to discuss. We are open to leading the conversation or playing a leading part in it.
Did you catch that? Lord Anderson has zeroed in on the real question. How far is this government willing to go with ECHR reform? Amendment, opt-outs, or just empty declarations? The Chancellor dodges a straight answer, classic political footwork. Notice how he stresses being a supporter of the Convention while keeping every option technically on the table. This is the government's balancing act, reassuring Europe we're good partners while quietly leaving the door open for reforms that play well domestically, especially on hot-button issues like migration and deportation. But here's the kicker. Is this a genuine commitment to modernising human rights law, or just political cover to push tougher policies at home? What do you think? Is this strategic diplomacy or double?
I obviously, in my speech, referred to the particular challenges around dealing with irregular migration and also with the deportation of foreign offenders. But on that score, we as a government believe that there is actually work that we can do domestically within our own domestic legal framework. And that is why the Home Secretary in particular is looking at the application of Article 8 and will be bringing forward further proposals later in the autumn. So our work to begin with is very much focused on Article 8. It may expand beyond Article 8, but that will depend a bit on how some of the new conversations with our colleagues in Europe go.
I think others, if I may, will come back to that domestic aspect of what you're going to do. But I'll just ask you one more question, if I may. I'm just keen to establish the limit of your political ambition when it comes to what you described as the shared political endeavour between member states. Are we looking potentially at an amendment to the text of the Convention itself? Are we looking at making it perhaps easier to derogate from certain provisions of the Convention? Or do you think the most that is realistically achievable might be some kind of declaration of the kind that we saw in Istanbul, in Izmir, in Brighton, where the states agree certain principles guiding the interpretation of the Convention rather than actually amending its terms?
Well, look, I would say that the debate at the Council of Europe is maybe a stage before you get to what is the art of the possible, or how far are people willing to go, which is just the desire to have the conversation. I think in previous certainly under previous British governments, but even with other colleagues in Europe, there has been a nervousness even about having the debate, or one or two countries have a problem with this, but everybody else is basically fine. So it seemed like more of a lone endeavour, more of an isolationist position potentially to be in. What is happening now is more member states are willing to entertain the conversation, but I think they're at the stage of being able to set the parameters for the way in which a conversation might take place before we get to what is on the table. So I would say that it is a stage earlier than what you've said. What is my own personal view? Generally speaking, if you're going to talk about reform because you believe in something and you want it to last another 75 years, you don't start taking things off the table straight away, because that wouldn't, in my mind, seem like a sensible political way to operate. But we do so knowing that we are supporters of the Convention, and we want to remain members of it, and as the Prime Minister has made clear, we're not coming out of it.
Thank you. Lady Andrews, and then Lord Fuchs.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning, Lord Chancellor. Lovely to have you here. Thank you for being so frank on all aspects so far. I want to go back to the ECHR, because what you've been saying about the conversation, the discourse you're having across Europe is so interesting and important to us in the context of our inquiry into the rule of law in general. And one of the issues is about the perception of change. And you talked about the changing circumstances which require a rethink of the ECHR, and particularly about mass migration, which has changed the geopolitics to an extent, and it's also changed the perception of how robust and consistent can the interpretation of what are human rights, how can it be? And in your conversations with Europe, when you talked about leadership, do you think you can hold the line that human rights actually have to be defended, even under changing circumstances when there are so many political pressures as well? Do you have the confidence that is sufficiently robust, both as a moral and a political imperative, that we can actually show that sort of leadership?
I believe the answer to that is yes, but that is the political test that we have set ourselves as a government, and others can judge for themselves in due course. What I would say is, this really goes to the heart of the argument I was making at the Council of Europe. We start as a government from a position of believing in this convention and wanting to defend the independence of the court and the judiciary that sit in that court. So we're not wanting to play, as you might say, populist politics with it. We go in with from a position of believers in what the convention is trying to achieve. And if people who want, who support this instrument and who want it to work can't have this debate in a sensible way, then, honestly, there's no hope really at all for anybody. So part of the desire to make that intervention was to say, look, we're here, we are supported whilst we're a government, this is going to be our position.
Withdrawing from the ECHR altogether. Let's be crystal clear. That would put the UK in the same camp as Russia and Belarus. Not exactly the company Britain usually prides itself on keeping. The Lord Chancellor swats the idea away, insisting the government is firmly committed to staying in. But notice the undertone. While ruling out withdrawal, he pivots back to Article 8 and domestic reforms, signalling that Westminster wants to reinterpret human rights at home rather than walk away abroad. This is where the drama really heats up. Do reforms at home erode rights in practice, even if we stay on paper? Viewers, if you were in Parliament, would you trust the government's assurances, or do you see a slow drift away from international commitment?
But, it is incumbent on people who are supporters to engage with it. Otherwise, the debate gets away from you, and others who might want to tear up all of these instruments and who might not have any idea of what they want to replace it with, or if they do, it might not be something that we could all sign up to. They get to lead the debate. And I think it was time for a coming together of like-minded individuals to say we should try to lead the debate in a different direction. It is at a very early stage, and of course us acting alone isn't going to get us very far, and so when you are dealing with lots of different countries with different perspectives, those are going to be delicate, prolonged discussions, but I took heart from the fact that whatever people think of the content of the letter from the 9 other member states, when I was talking to their ambassadors to the Council of Europe, there was a desire just to have a discussion. They wanted to remove the desire to have the discussion from the absolutely no, this means you're in the bad guy box, into the no, can we just be sensible about this box? And that's where we were trying to land that, and I do think we have a role to play there.
Lord Fuchs.
Thank you, Chair. Can I follow that up and declare an interest? I'm one of the members of the all-party delegation to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. As you know, Lord Chancellor, there are some people who are suggesting we should, as they say, withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights. That would be effectively us withdrawing from the Council of Europe and joining Belarus and Russia. Is that right?
Well, yes, if you withdraw, you're in a club that currently has 2 members, and then we would be a third. We're not... The position of our government is the direct opposite of that.
Good.
Yes, there are obviously... It's a matter of political debate, rather intense political debate at the moment.
And you're very wisely suggesting that you and the Home Secretary should look at how the convention might be adjusted for modern circumstances. Can you give us assurance that you and the Home Secretary will involve Parliament, both Houses of Parliament, in this discussion, and particularly the delegation, the all-party delegation to the Parliamentary Assembly, because I'm sure there would be a useful input from both houses and from the delegation.
Yes, I mean, the work on Article 8 is being led by the Home Secretary, but I'm sure she won't mind me speaking for her, and I'm certain you know the Home Secretary very well as well. She will, of course, do things a proper way, and there will be plenty of debate and discussion in Parliament. As I say, the government started with their white paper.
So, what have we seen? A government walking a tightrope, publicly affirming its loyalty to the European Convention, while quietly testing how far it can stretch domestic law, particularly on migration and deportation. Lord Anderson and others pressed hard on whether reform means leadership or retreat, and the Chancellor's answers left just enough ambiguity to fuel both optimism and suspicion. The stakes are clear. The UK is trying to reshape human rights without exiting the system. But whether that strengthens or undermines our international reputation remains an open question. If you found this debate as explosive as we did, make sure to hit that like button. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you trust the government's stance on the ECHR? And don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping UK political breakdowns. Stay tuned. Because the next chapter in this saga is bound to be even fiercer.
Sort of statement of intent about where we want to go, and the work that we're doing to deal with some of the challenges that irregular migration is posing, and she's already said that later in the autumn we will be saying more about our views on Article 8. Certainly in conversation with members of other delegations in Europe. There is a view, it was surprising to me how widely held that view was, that we, the Brits, maybe go to the nth degree, as I say, that we are at the maximalist end of the spectrum. And so for those who don't necessarily want to get into a big discussion about ECHR reform through the Council of Europe, there was very much a sense of, you guys just need to sort your domestic law out, because you are, you're maybe going a bit too far, and even the court doesn't want you to go that far. Those are discussions with other politicians, I hasten to add, not with jurists, but there was a very widely held view amongst lots of people that I was engaging with, that the issue from their perspective is very much our domestic legislation as well, which is why I think this work on Article 8 is particularly important.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Thank you.